The world's biggest tournament is coming, and the official FIFA World Cup 26 Tri-Under competition ball is here at the Goal 90 shop. Designed for the game's biggest stage, it's built for precision, speed and control. Right now, you can make it yours with 30% off plus free shipping. Don't just watch the World Cup, own a piece of it. Visit goal90.shop today and order now. Qualification for the 2026 World Cup continues to heat up, and with each international break, the fate of more countries continues to be determined. Apart from the hosts, 25 countries have secured qualification to the showdown in North America next summer, but even more than that number have already been eliminated. Some nations are still being dragged over the line by their best players, but there are others who are hanging on the precipice of elimination. It is the players who fall into the last category we will be talking about in this video today. These are 10 superstar players who are on the verge of missing out on the 2026 World Cup, and we'll only be picking one from each team. We'll start with Alexander Isak. Sweden are having a very shocking qualifying campaign, and if they are not careful, they'd end up missing out on the World Cup. They find themselves last in a group with Switzerland, Kosovo and Slovenia with just 1 point from 4 games. At this point, it is impossible for them to qualify directly from their group rankings, but they may still qualify for the playoffs thanks to their Nations League performances. But that may not even matter, because if they continue to perform this way, there's no way they'll get through the playoffs. Speaking of playoffs, Bryan Mbeumo is another Premier League attacker who's at the mercy of that. He and Cameroon were unable to secure an automatic qualification spot after having finished second to underdogs Cape Verde, who just qualified for the World Cup for the first time in their history. Now, Cameroon will have to go through a few more excruciating rounds of qualifiers in order to make it to the World Cup. Having been drawn in a group where they have more World Cup appearances than the rest of the teams combined, this is definitely not the situation they hope to have found themselves in. But Mbeumo is not even the only superstar attacker from Africa on this list. There are a couple more actually. Can you guess who they are? Take a shot in the comments, we'll see if you're right soon. While you're there, if you aren't already subscribed to the channel, go do that right away, so you never miss out on our amazing content. Anyway, from a current Man United man, let's now look at a former one, Aaron Wan-Bissaka. The right back has never been to the World Cup, and it's looking like he might have to wait longer to make his first appearance, because he and DR Congo are on the brink of missing out on the big showdown. They're currently in the playoffs, but they've been drawn to play Cameroon in the first round of that in November, so it's tough right from the very beginning. As a matter of fact, what this means is that it's now impossible for us to see both Bryan Mbeumo and Aaron Wan-Bissaka at the World Cup. And in fact, you can add Victor Osimhen to that list. Remember we said there are a couple more superstar African attackers in this video? Well, he is one of them. The Galatasaray centre-forward has really been carrying Nigeria on his back in this qualifying campaign, but sadly, it just might end up not being enough. Nigeria were unable to finish above South Africa in their group, but thanks to Osimhen's hat-trick, which helped Nigeria to a 4-0 win against Benin Republic in the last group game, they were able to leapfrog their neighbours on the table and squeeze into the playoffs on goal difference. But as we've explained earlier, it's a very long and tedious process. Nigeria will go up against Gabon, and if they win that, they'll go on to play the winner of Cameroon v DR Congo. Then the winner of that goes on to represent Africa in the Interconfederations playoffs. So while it's possible for Osimhen to be at the 2026 World Cup, the mathematical odds that he won't are higher. It's the same thing for Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. The former Arsenal striker had initially retired from international football in 2022, but he returned the following year and would desperately love to lead Gabon to the World Cup for the first time in their history before he finally hangs his boots. They came so close to securing automatic qualification, but they only just missed out, finishing just 1 point behind Côte d'Ivoire in their group. They now go into the playoffs as the best-ranked second-place team in Africa, but they will have to face a star-studded Nigeria in the first round. It's surely going to be very tough for Aubameyang and his teammates. For context on how tough it's going to be, only one of the 4 African players we've mentioned in this video, Mbeumo, Osimhen, Wan-Bissaka and Aubameyang, can make it to the World Cup next year. And mind you, there's also a possibility that none of them will make it. Yeah, so when we say they're on the verge of missing out on the World Cup, we're not kidding at all. Okay, enough of the African stars now. Let us talk about some of the big boys from Europe. Khvicha Kvaratskhelia is also on the verge of missing out on the World Cup. To be fair, hoping for him to take Georgia to the World Cup is a big ask, especially when you consider that they were drawn into a group with Spain and Turkey. At this point, it's impossible for Georgia to qualify for the World Cup directly, but they can still make it to the playoffs. All things considered, do we see them making it to the World Cup for the first time next year? We'll be honest, no. But hey, miracles happen, right? Koim Hin Kelleher will also need a miracle to make it to the World Cup next year. Despite his heroics against Portugal the other day, saving Cristiano Ronaldo's penalty and all that, the Republic of Ireland were unable to secure a point and as such are still struggling to make it out of their group. They currently have 4 points from 4 games and are sitting behind Portugal and Hungary on the table. Mathematically, Kelleher can still make it to the World Cup, but he's closer to being out than in at this point. Next, let's talk about Dusan Vlahovic. The Juventus striker is currently on the brink of missing out on the World Cup. At this point, it is impossible for Serbia to qualify directly from their group, but they can still get to the playoffs. They find themselves in the same group with England, who have already taken the automatic qualification spot. But they're also behind Albania, so qualifying for the playoffs is still in doubt right now. Another player who belongs on this list is Kilo Navas. The former Real Madrid man is on the brink of missing out on what should be his last ever World Cup. His Costa Rica team find themselves second to Honduras in their group, which means that they'll have to win their last 2 games to gain automatic qualification. If they drop points in one of those games and Honduras remain perfect, then they'd have to go through the tedious Interconfederation playoff rounds, and you know, that's just so difficult. Let's now wrap up with Brennan Johnson. His Wales team currently find themselves third on their table behind Belgium and North Macedonia, and even though they mathematically can, it's highly unlikely that they'll qualify automatically. What's more realistic is that they'll slug it out in the playoffs, but even that isn't guaranteed. To put it simply, Johnson is on the verge of missing out on the 2026 World Cup. Now, every player we've talked about so far still mathematically has a chance of making it to the World Cup, but here are some players who are already 100% out. Kostas Tsimikas won't be at the World Cup as Greece have been officially eliminated from qualification. Yves Bissouma's Mali is also out of the running, and it's the same for Serhou Guirassy's Guinea and Alexis Sanchez's Chile. Anyway, which of these players we have listed today do you think will actually make it to the World Cup, and which ones do you think will miss out? Get in the comments and talk to us. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Also, turn on the bell notification so you never miss out on new content. Catch you in the next one. Bye.